prepare ourselves for this,
Yeah.
Dave Hall. While getting ready for his live shot this morning, our Dylan Kendrick looked up and gasped.
Gasped, we say. He saw a string of strange lights zipping across the valley sky. He's not the only one. So what was it? Do we need to call the Men in Black or something? Let's bring in Dylan. Dylan, what did you see?
Oh man, so I'm just gonna start off with saying I'm not the average Joe who starts talking aliens just randomly to get people fired up this morning.
No, that's more fun.
But
Let's talk.
I mean, I hope we could. I hope we can show some of the video. But what we saw, my photographer Luis and I were just talking in between that live shot that we brought to you at the 5 o'clock hour. Looked up and just saw at least 20 or 30 lights just kind of coming into play. So there was a dark sky, nothing, and then these bright lights just started coming out and just moving about in a southeasterly direction. One of the strangest things I've seen, like I said, at this point they're unidentified. UFOs don't associate all the time with aliens, but at this point I've never seen anything like it. Folks are reaching out to me on Twitter for my video. It was spotted out in California, which tells us these aren't airplanes, they're not drones, but wow guys, I mean, you guys can chime in. You've seen the video too. Just let everyone know at home I'm not crazy.
Well, I mean, not for this reason, Dylan, but maybe for others. But anyway, were they flying towards Nellis Air Force Base? Could you tell? Were they flying in the direction of Nellis?
No, so they were actually flying southeast, I want to say. So coming kind of from a northwest-southeast pattern, and if we're taking Las Vegas and looking southeast, I'd say it's more in the direction of maybe headed towards Boulder City, Lake Mead area, towards Arizona was the direction that I saw it coming from. But it was coming from the northwest. As you know, Nellis Air Force Base is in the northeast. But like I mentioned, I don't think these are airplanes because I've been getting tweets from people who saw the same thing out in California. So that just leaves it up to you to decide what it is, guys.
So if you at home saw this as well, we want to see your video. Please send them to us so we can continue dissecting this. But I mean, isn't Nellis doing those those drills right now? And I know they've been doing night training. I don't know if that would take them to California, but I feel much better knowing it was them instead of the latter.
Right.
Well, I mean, like I said,
if we're being,
go ahead, Dylan. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dave. I was going to say, if we're being real, I mean, we had just an insane year last year, I think, where everything that could happen happened. The only thing missing from the slate here is an alien invasion.
Yep.
I don't know what else could happen. Honestly.
You know what, Dylan? I think you need to head out to the lake and see if maybe there's some flying saucers just kind of chilling on the lake. Maybe tell them to bring us some water.
Yeah, we're going to stop at the store and buy some foil first before we see shortages there.
Good call. Yeah.
Foil hats, people. Foil hats.
That way they can't read your brain. They won't know what you're thinking. We all know that. Aliens can't see through tinfoil. So that's smart, Dylan. Very smart.
I bet you they don't have these type of conversations and stories over there like in Maine. Nope. Vegas, baby.
All right.
2020 has hit us with a lot of stuff. It's not even July, but from the giant killer hornets that are coming to, there's just locusts everywhere and the pandemic. I mean, what is coming next is the real question. Well, we think we have a viral video, which was released from Miami, which explains a lot. It shows that it might be UFOs. No word on what these lights in the sky actually are yet, but a Senate Intelligence Committee is calling on the Pentagon to release the UFO reports that they're sitting on. Those damned people. Megan, do they need to release this right now?
Yeah, obviously. I may have seen this video on Twitter at about midnight the night before last, and I may have texted it to Sunny asking if we were being invaded. That may have happened. And she said, I'm ready. And so I feel like if this planet is going to continue on this path, Sunny and I are ready to go to the next planet. I'm fine to start a new colony where there's no coronavirus and no Trump. And we can start over because we have screwed things up on this one as much as possible. But it legitimately scared me, I will say, because it was all over Twitter, and I was like, what is this? It would be like 2020 to have us being invaded. So there you go. Sorry, Sunny.
That's
Again,
hysterical.
I'm bored at home.
I want to know if they have rooms on their ship for us to go with them.
This is true. Maybe those are the people we saw in the very beginning of the show. Maybe that's who was saying we don't want to wear masks.
Possible.
Maybe that's why it seems so strange to us.
Yeah.
You know, Sonny, how would you handle an alien encounter if you had one?
Well, Megan did, in fact, contact me at like midnight with this thing. And I was like, Megan, I am willing to get on the UFO with you.
Yeah.
And leave. I want to leave. I just want to leave because it's the Rona and it's Trump, and I'm done. I really felt that way because I believe that there is life beyond us. I've said it on the show. I believe in Area 51. I believe that Trump knows about Area 51. That's probably the only intelligence briefing that he reads, because I think it reads like a science fiction novel. I think it has pictures of aliens. I think he would be very interested in that. And I think he knows about that. I really do. And I think it's real, and I'm willing to get on. That's it.
All right, well, I'm not leaving the planet to anybody. I'm not leaving the planet to anybody. You know what? Y'all can come and visit, but you're not taking me off this planet. This is mine, and I'm gonna fight y'all, however many arms you have.
task force to investigate UFO sightings. It comes just months after the Pentagon declassified 3 videos captured by Navy pilots showing unidentified flying objects. It's exciting news for Ryan Sprague, who has spent years interviewing people who've had encounters with UFOs. Earlier today, I spoke to him about what he thinks the task force could uncover. Ryan Sprague, thank you for joining the latest. The fact that the US government created a new UFO task force, does this mean they know more than we think?
That's a very good question. That's what we're hoping for. And the fact that we live in a world now where the US government and hopefully other governments are looking at this topic seriously and investigating it in an official capacity is more than we could ever ask for. So I do believe there are some things that will remain classified, but I think the public is going to be led on to a lot more in the coming months.
So what do you think they are hoping to discover with this task force?
I think what they're hoping to discover with this is possible threats or incursions. I mean, this is what our government does. They protect their nations, and they want to know if there's things in our skies that our most sophisticated pilots and aircraft are being outmaneuvered by, that's a problem. So I do think this is a safety issue, a national security issue. And hey, if it turns out to be aliens, all the more better for us UFO researchers out there. But end of the day, I do think this is a national security issue more than anything.
How has the world's understanding of UFOs changed over the past year?
The past few years, the perception of the UFO topic has changed dramatically. You know, for 70 plus years, it was filled with stigma and ridicule and little green men in flying saucers. But now that the governments around the world are taking it seriously, that says something. So the entire landscape of this conversation has changed. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that as time goes on, that something's happening in our skies and we cannot explain it.
So let's talk about your latest book. What made you focus on individuals who've had UFO experiences?
So for me, you know, the U.S. government and other governments are looking at military UFO cases that military pilots and people on the ground have reported. But for every one of these military UFO encounters, there's 100 civilians from all over the world who report seeing these things. So I wanted to focus on those individuals, give them a voice, show the world that everyday people are having these experiences, including an entire chapter dedicated to an individual in Sydney, Australia. So, I mean, this touches a deeply personal level for people all over the world, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to bring these stories to the public that have never been made public before.
How did you find these people?
The age of the internet. I mean, a lot of people reached out to me. I reached out to a lot of people. There are civilian UFO research groups all over the world that are connected through Facebook, through Twitter, and we all talk and we all are sharing information. So it really depends, but yeah, most of it has to do with social media in the age we live in.
So can you see a pattern in people's experiences?
I would say the biggest pattern I've come across in terms of people's experiences is how the event affected their lives. You know, we could have the same similar shape of an object these people have seen, or, you know, a location where it occurred. But for me, it always comes down to the human, the individual having the experience and how it changes their lives. And for some, it's a spiritual experience. For some, it's a otherworldly experience. And that's what I found most interesting, is these patterns within society and culture and how those affect what people are seeing and their perception of what they're seeing.
So what sort of percentage of people do you think see an object and think, that's strange, don't know what that is, compared to people who are convinced it's aliens?
That's a very good question. I mean, my first question when people come to me with a UFO report is, were you into UFOs before this? Did you believe in aliens and have they visited our planet? And I will tell you, probably the majority of people said no. I had no interest in this. I've never watched anything about UFOs. So for me, I think the percentage really comes down to individuals, no preconceived notions of what they were seeing, and coming out on the other side believing we're not alone.
So skeptics would look at this and think, you know, there's a certain type of person who'll believe in a UFO. Did you find that? Is there a certain type of person?
No. I mean, when we're talking about UFO witnesses, we all have these ideas of, you know, people in the backwoods having these experiences. They've maybe had a few too many beers, but this is not the case. I've interviewed doctors, law enforcement, news reporters, everyone you can possibly think of, your barista at the coffee shop. These are the people having these experiences and being dramatically changed by them.
So you've had a UFO experience?
I have. I saw a UFO when I was a child, and I was terrified of what I saw. I could not explain it. My father witnessed this with me. He could not explain it, and it terrified me. And it kind of sent me on this path to try to find answers.
What do you think it was?
I believe what I saw, this was back in the mid-90s, was some sort of top secret military aircraft, but I cannot be certain of that. So the possibility remains open. Was it ours? Maybe. Was it from another planet? Possibly. And hopefully someday I'll find that answer. But for me, it's more about the journey than, I guess, the final destination.
So are you a believer in, you know, something else being out there, or you're on the fence?
I'm a skeptic believer. I am definitely a skeptic believer when it comes to this topic. I will go in believing until I'm proven wrong or I'm proven differently. So I remain open. I know there's life out there somewhere. It's a matter of, has it visited our planet? And that's what we're trying to figure out. And that's what our governments are trying to figure out. So I look forward to whatever comes next.
You said you've looked into UFO cases in Australia. Tell me about the cases in Australia.
There are two cases in Australia that I've specifically looked at. One was back in the 70s with a family, the Knowles family, who were traveling through Perth, and they actually, while they were on the road, a UFO came down and landed on the roof of their car and lifted their car off of the road. And every member of the family had the same story to tell. There were, the tires blew out, there was damage to the car, so something happened. And there were other witnesses to this as well. So this is a very dramatic case out of Australia. The other one happened in the mid-90s in Sydney with a gentleman who's had lifelong UFO experiences. He even invited news reporters and investigators to come out, and all of these people had UFO sightings with him. So talk about changing your life. This guy is being followed by UFOs every waking moment. So it's really interesting. And I will say some of our best cases come out of Australia.
And do you believe all the people you talk to?
Yes. I believe the individuals believe what they saw. That's as far as I can go in terms of saying that.
Sounds like fascinating reading. Thank you so much for your time. Ryan Sprague.
Holy crap. Karen, what is that? What is that?
Top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object.
That was the pilot of American Airlines Flight 2292 after witnessing a mysterious object pass right by his aircraft.
It almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing, moving really fast.
The close encounter happened early Sunday afternoon while the American Airlines flight was passing over New Mexico en route to Arizona.
Have any targets up here? We just had something go right over the top of us.
The radio call was noticed by an airline radio enthusiast who says the call caught his attention because the pilot sounded very excited. On Tuesday, American Airlines validated the call but asked for questions to go to the FBI. The Federal Aviation Administration also acknowledges the pilot reported seeing an object, but says its air traffic controllers did not see any object in the area on their radar scopes. It's not the first time a pilot has spotted unexplained flying phenomena, and while authorities may never be able to explain what this one is, it's definitely an experience this pilot won't forget.
We just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object.
Sharmeen Samani, Global News.
days on UFOs. And yes, because Crystal is out, I'm going to cover his UFOs as much as I want to. Not that she's against it. Not that she's against it. I'm just very into it. Okay, so this all started out on a website called The Debrief. Let's throw this up there. So The Debrief, very interesting news organization on science, tech, and aerospace, spoke with a lot of U.S. military and intelligence officials about the UAPTF. Now, I want everybody to take that in. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. Now, this task force, we've talked a lot about that here, that's what is working with Congress and the Intelligence Committee. Well, it turns out, according to The Debrief, they spoke with a bunch of officials about a new report that's been circulating around the Pentagon and within the intelligence community. Now, I'm going to read some direct quotes to everyone. Everyone The Debrief spoke with said that the most striking feature of a recent report was the inclusion of a new, extremely clear photograph of an unidentifiable triangular aircraft. Now, yesterday, The Debrief published these photos. So the first one, let's go back to that first one, and you can see clearly it was taken with a cell phone camera from an aircraft. This was an FA-18 fighter pilot, and it was captured somewhere over the ocean. I also want to explain here the behavior. So two officials that received that report said, quote, the photo was taken after the triangular craft emerged from the ocean and began to ascend straight upwards at a 90-degree angle. So Ryan, you've had the privilege of being here and having participated now in 2 UFO segments. Your reaction to this news, real bombshell stuff, man.
This is amazing stuff. And what's amazing to me too about it is my inability to believe it. Like I could, they could walk on stage with a couple of aliens who would start talking, and right. That's not happening. There's some type of mental block that I have that just doesn't allow me to go there, even though I can't do the math, but I know other people can do the math and show that the probabilities are such that if you have this infinite galactic historical timeline before you, that the probability is that, of course, we're not the only place where life could develop. And if life can develop, you can have intelligent life. And if you can have intelligent life, you can figure out space travel. We figured it out. I want to know a lot more about what was going on underneath the ocean, this thing flying out of it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we've got ex-Air Force personnel who've testified that UFOs have actually deactivated nukes. One of the things I forgot to mention, Commander David Fravor talked about, is that one of the UFOs that came into contact with a U.S. Air Force plane actually jammed their radar, technically an act of war. And what's important to acknowledge about all this is that part about the ocean, this is now consistent with a couple of different verified accounts of U.S. military personnel that are encountering this. And Ryan, you and I were talking before the segment. In some cases now, nuclear attack submarines are said to have encountered some of these vehicles under the ocean. And I remind everybody, the Tic Tac one in 2005 was actually observed by Commander Fravor, saying that it might have been communicating with something in the subsurface. So this isn't just something which is aerial necessarily. This is just something that kind of because it defies the laws of physics, it just changes the way that we think about flying. I mean, whenever you have a propulsion system which doesn't require like air and burning air, you fly just same underwater as you do in the air. Are you a ship? Like, I don't know.
Are there other theories that the Army is throwing out, or the military is throwing out, as to what else could be going on here?
Great question. In terms of the military, they don't mention any. Now, in the Debrief article, what they talk about is something called a weather dropsonone, and that is like a triangular-ish, I wish I had a picture that I could throw up here. I should have thought about that, which is attached by string to a larger weight. And the reason why they generally think they can rule that out is because the string and the weight are not attached in terms of that triangular phenomena. The other one people were talking about is a Mylar balloon. That's been the case in several different ones. That one, look, I don't have an explanation. It's certainly possible. What I would say is, I do not think an FA-18 fighter pilot takes out his cell phone to take a photo of something when it's a Mylar balloon. I just think that given the amount of time that these guys spend up there in the air, we're talking about tens of thousands of hours of airtime, of so much more. They know how to distinguish between something that they believe to be something emerging from the ocean and going at a right 90-degree angle, and like a Mylar balloon, which is just like going around.
Right.
So look, I mean, this is just another tool in the cap. And as we've said, and actually, it's interesting. A lot of people contacted me after our last segment when you were asking, like, why would they keep this secret? A lot of it has to do with the nuclear program and some of the more secret elements of the U.S. military arsenal and their own, contact that has come in with these vehicles. But, it just day after day after day, the situation gets a lot more interesting.
I'm glad we're learning more about it. I'm glad that, credible outlets like the one that you just elevated are looking at this in a way where people who haven't been following it religiously for years can have a place to go to and look at it in a serious way.
Yeah, I try hard to break it down on only the most credible ones and Pentagon reports, things with photos, that type of thing, because it's very easy to be dismissed. There's been a lot of propaganda about this for many, many years. Anyway.